I found out my husband has been making life decisions based on his ex's suicide note. Background on my husband: 34 meters, he was a fat lonely kid, often bullied, no friends. Then he met Maya. His first and only friend. Like my husband, Maya was also a misfit. Came from a dysfunctional family. They became best friends. When they were 15, Maya was gang abused by her stepsister's boyfriend and classmates. She was badly injured, was in coma for 2 weeks. The abuses, as they were minor, weren't jailed, I believe. They got out with minor punishments. This is the story I have heard from my husband and in-laws. Maya committed suicide right after she woke up and wrote only one letter of goodbye, which was addressed to my husband. I had never read this letter as I wanted to preserve his privacy, and it always felt too personal. Onto my story. I have been noticing weird things about my husband for a while. We had our first baby when we were 27. I wanted to wait a little before our second, but my husband wanted one when he turned 30. He would mumble things like, "It has to be 30. It should be at 30. At 30, I had my second kid, a girl, named her Maya. Now I often find him hugging her and crying, asking an infant if he is doing a good job at being a father. We have to go on yearly vacations. Even when our kids were babies and we were busy, he forced us on a vacay. Now that he is turning 35, he insists we buy a bigger house, again keeps mumbling the house is at 35. Well, I read the letter. It was laminated and filed. He keeps it in the safe along with other imp docs such as house property. It was a very sweet letter, basically thanked him for being there for her. And then she concluded it with wishing he lives this perfect life where he graduates at 24, marries at 26, has babies at 27 and 30, moves to a big house at 35, always goes on fancy vacay, and with him being 90, reading stories to his grandkids. She also tells him to be a good father and husband. If he ever gets tired, she wants him to think for her suffering because of her family. Now that I have read everything, and know that my husband has been planning his entire life based on that letter, it feels so weird. I had to tell someone. Stories number 2. I pulled the trigger on myself. I caught my wife 2 months into an affair with her boss at work. I told her I wanted a divorce and left to my father's house for a week. She told me she wanted to stay together after that. She promised to stop and be faithful, and I was in the process of finally starting to trust her a little. When the gut feeling to check her phone came across me, I saw that she had been bragging to her friends about cheating with her hot manager and found out that she hadn't stopped. When I confronted her about it, she was more mad about the fact I went through her phone than the fact I found out. I have always treated her well, paid for every little thing she wanted. I am super sweet towards her, and our intercourse life has been great. Apparently, she just fell out of love with me. While we were arguing about her keeping up with the affair, she yelled out that I deserved to be cheated on. And I know that that isn't true, and she said it because she was mad about me going through her phone. But that honestly cut so deep, like she could have said anything else. I went to work, stopped in the parking lot next day and put my 1911 in my mouth and pulled the trigger just a click, so I assumed it must have been empty. It wasn't. The bullet was dead. I cocked it back and tried again. It didn't go off. Now I just have 2 bullets with the primers dented. I don't feel like killing myself anymore. There has been some time, but I just needed to get that off my chest. I have shot the gun since then. It has fired every single time. Stories number 3. My mother, who left 13 years ago to be with her new boyfriend, came back and wants to reconnect, so I left. My mother left me and my siblings 13 years ago to be with her boyfriend. My older sister took care of us, and for the past 13 years she has basically been our mother. We didn't have it easy, but we managed, and eventually things started to get better. My younger siblings, twins, really missed our mother and would often ask me or our sister to bring them to her. We always told them that she didn't want us in her life and that they should forget about her. And for a long time it seemed like they did forget about her. A couple days ago I was home alone when I hear a knock on the door. I open it and see our mother with her now husband. I was shocked but asked what they wanted, and she told me that they wanted to talk to everyone. I told them that wouldn't happen and that they have to leave, to which her husband got angry and told me to show respect. We got in a bit of an argument and suddenly they just pushed me aside and walked into the house. After a while, my older sister and younger siblings came home. My younger siblings were really happy and couldn't stop hugging her. They even went as far as to say that they missed her and that they love her. My older sister really wanted them to leave, but they didn't. After a little bit of arguing, our mother told us that she wants us back in her life and that she wants us to be a family again. My sister got angry and told them that she couldn't just come back after leaving us for so long and to expect that we'd be okay with it. This led to another argument. And this time our younger siblings got involved and told both me and our sister that we were unfair, and that we should forgive her since she came back. My sister just gave up and told them to do what they wanted. Our mother started asking us what we wanted to do, and my younger siblings told her that they want to be with her. When she asked me, I told her that if she came back into our lives, then I would have to leave. After another argument, I went to my room to get some clothes and other important stuff. When I came downstairs, my sister tried to stop me from leaving, but I still left. I went to my friend and I am still there. My sister and younger siblings have been calling and messaging me asking me to come home and talk, but I haven't answered. I know I am an organ for leaving, and I also know I should let my siblings do what they want, but I also don't want to be a part of it. If they really want her to be a part of their lives, then that is their choice, but I will stay gone. Update. So about a year ago I posted about how my mother came back after being absent from my siblings and my lives. In that post I explained that I left my younger siblings, twins, and my older sister because I didn't want anything to do with my mother, so I didn't stay gone too long, and when I came back my mother and her partner were still there. I decided to talk to them and my siblings because I wanted to know the complete truth. Apparently she got a job on the other side of the country, paired with her falling in love with her current partner. She explained that she did love us, but that she wanted to pursue her new job. Apparently it was her plan to get us once she felt like she could truly take care of us. Unfortunately that never happened. There was more said, some good things, some bad, especially from my side, because I'll be honest, I was pissed and ready to tear her a new one. After everything was said and done, she told us she wants to come back into our life, and surprisingly she accepted it if we didn't want that. My younger siblings, the twins, quickly agreed to have her back in their lives, and I understand they were for when she left and they want their mother in their lives. My older sister was harder to convince, but in the end she also was willing to try and have a relationship with her. I decided to not want her in my life. She was hurt but accepted it, so after all of that I decided to fully move out. I went and stayed with a friend for a few months until I finally was able to rent my own place not too far from where my siblings live. Since I got my own place, things have only gotten better for me. I got a new job that pays well and have been seeing someone. So yeah, things are going well. Anyway, that is the update. I thank you all for reading, and thank you all for the kind words after I made my first post. I hope you all have an amazing day, night. Thank you and stay safe. Stories number 4. I ended my relationship this morning. It was the time to make some life decisions before I don't know who I am. I ended my 4+ year relationship this morning at 9:39 EST. I'm not sure what I have been doing for years with this person. After a Trump tirade about the debate, she still backs him, looks at me, and makes comments about me and my beliefs. I love this country and we need to save it. My last words to her were, I cannot respect someone who respects this man. Thanks for reading. I needed to share and need a beer and real human interaction. Get me the hell out of this place and talk to me so I know I am not alone. Edit. I did not end this relationship over Donald Trump. I am 54 years old and have spent the last 4 years with someone who turned into a different person over the last 2 years. And this event was the final straw for me. I have been trying to get her to go to therapy with me and work on the relationship, only to be met with ridicule and nastiness. I made a decision that I needed to make, and I am venting as I am in the thinking process of the next chapter of my life. Stories number 5. I hate my dead brother and I resent my parents for refusing to acknowledge how much of a failure he was. These are complicated emotions, so I'll try to be as brief as I can. I 3 for him had a brother who would be 43 if he was still alive today. My brother was a star high school athlete and would have college scouts attend his games. Everyone talked about how he would play in the NFL and make millions of dollars. I, being much younger, practically worshipped him. But toward the end of his junior year, the unthinkable happened. He sustained an injury to his knee that ended his football career. Our family is well off, so he didn't need a scholarship to attend college. Even still, my brother had his heart set on playing college football and never quite accepted that dream was over for him. He attended 2 different schools, dropping out both times due to alcohol and substance abuse. My parents tried to help, but he spiraled. He went from job to job, friend's couch to friend's couch, until he finally met a woman who was just as messed up he was. They had a kid together. My nephew now 14, but that wasn't enough to make him to shape up. He drank a bottle of liquor and wrapped his car around a tree one night. I was in graduate school at the time, and my parents gave my nephew's mom a pile of money to relinquish her parental rights and give my nephew over to them. She accepted and eventually died in a crack house a few years later. My parents had custody of my nephew for the first couple of years, but since they're both in their 70s and can't keep up with a young kid, he's lived with me since he was 10. I want to make it clear that I don't resent my nephew. I mean it when I say that he's the best thing in my life. He and I look very much alike. My brother and I also looked very much alike, and most people think that he's my son even if they look at me a little askance for being so young with a teenager. Until last weekend was his freshman homecoming dance, and my parents came over to take pictures of him and his date. The comments they made were nauseating. "So handsome, you look so much like your dad. He would be so proud." I stood in the background, wanting to scream. What did my brother ever do for his son? Why didn't he think this wonderful boy was worth living for, who's actually been there for my nephew for all of the big moments in his life? Not his dad, that's for sure, but of course, I can't say any of this out loud. My parents won't hear a word against my brother, and as for my nephew, I dare not say any of this in front of him because I don't want him to hate the part of him that comes from his dad. So instead I confess these feelings to you fine people. Judge me. Reddit. Stories number 6. My girlfriend didn't want me to find her Reddit account. I did anyways, and I regret it. So for context, I 26 meters have been with my beautiful 19F girlfriend for a few months now, and she is absolutely wonderful. I love her so much. Recently we got on the topic of Reddit somehow, and she said she uses Reddit constantly. I asked her for her username and she flat out rejected me and said no. We went back and forth a bit and I decided to drop the subject. The next day she gave me the username and apologized. When I searched the account, I discovered it had been made that day. This was an instant red flag to me, and my mind went to the worst places. I thought she was cheating on me using Reddit or something. I confronted her about this and she immediately went in defense mode and said it was to get me off her back because she has things that's not comfortable with me. Seeing this started a huge fight where I blatantly said I knew she was cheating. She was so offended and stormed out. I figured if I'm going to find out what's going on, I needed to see the phone for myself. I sent her an apology and we talked things out. A few weeks go by and I come home from work and she's passed out on the couch with TikTok open and playing, meaning her phone was unlocked. I went through the entire thing and found nothing, even in the messages with her friends she was bragging about me. I finally got to the Reddit and my heart sank. She has made multiple posts as a SA survivor support group. Mind you, she's never told me she's had this happen to her. She had made a post telling her story which made me sick to my stomach. She had been gang abused by her ex for years. She lived with him from age 18. Her most recent post was asking for advice on how to have a normal intimacy life because every time she tried to be intimate with me it would bring back memories and she was worried it would cause a panic attack. She mentioned in the group she didn't tell me and didn't want to tell me because she was too embarrassed. My heart sank. I felt sick to my stomach. I can't believe she's been going through this. It made sense. We had been together for months and we never had intercourse. Just a few moments where she let me pet the kitty for a moment, but she asked me to stop, which I immediately did. I have never touched her without asking. It never made her feel bad and always tell her she can tell me no, always, because it's her body. I don't have a high intercorsal drive, so honestly intercourse isn't really something I need. If I would've known, I would never made any moves. I would've waited for her to initiate. I would done research on how to support her and make her safe. I would helped pay for therapy and help her find anything she needed to heal. It's been 2 weeks since I found it. I haven't told her because it's her story and I want her to have the right to share it when she feels safe. I've avoided anything intercourse so that she can make a move when she is comfortable. This has been eating me alive. I feel awful for looking. I feel like I violated her. Stories number 7. I once let a girl who thought I was her drug dealer give me a BJ. You read that right. I was partying at a friend's neighbor's house and the guy and his wife thought I was their drug dealer. Big red. Full disclosure, I wasn't big, at just 5'7" tall, and my hair is just slightly red anyway. We ran out of booze and I was sent on an alcohol run. When I returned, the wife opened the passenger side door and jumped in my car. She started going on about how nice it was of Big Red to front them whatever it was that he gave them, hoping they'd pay at a later date. It was at this point that I realized she was calling me that name all night, thinking I was someone else despite my insistence that I wasn't who she Said I wish she wouldn't hear of it and started rubbing my crotch before unzipping my pants. And giving me the sloppiest drunken BJ of all time. I was horrified and looking around to see if anyone was coming to ambush me while also enjoying myself. Stories number 8. I lied to my coworkers about having a girlfriend so I can go home early and watch my 600 pounds life every night, and my life has gotten exponentially better. I'm a chef and usually get off work around 12:01. Usually all the mates want to go have shots and lines at the local until we stagger back in at 14 o'clock for our next shifts, and I've happily obliged all year. This month I started leaving very quickly and going straight home, originally just to save money. Usually right when I get home my 600 pounds life is on, so I started watching it. And oh my fuck, equally disturbing, motivational and inspiring. I'm quite skinny. But one quote that sticks with me is most people with addictions get to lie and pretend it all away. I don't get that option. Totally stuck with me. I truly believe if my addiction manifested itself, I'd be grotesque. Anyways, I've been doing this every night this month to the point where a rumor that I must be seeing someone began, so I ran with it. I've never felt better and more secure in my sobriety and peace of mind. Straight home, cup of tea, feed the cat, my 600 pounds life motivation to clean and stay sober for the night. Peace. It's the weirdest shit, but I'm loving it. Stories number 9. My boyfriend got jealous when he saw another couple in public using a random account to make this post because my main account could be a privacy concern. Because I'm going to be sharing some private information on this post. We live in Jackson, Mississippi. I'm stating this because where we live isn't diverse at all. You don't see interracial relationships a lot, and if you do, it's pretty rare. Me and my boyfriend were at the Social Security office applying for our toddler's SS card. Me and my boyfriend are both black. Okay, so while waiting for our appointment, there comes another couple with a baby, a white girl with a black man. Pretty young couple, just like us, I kid you not. When I say everyone at this office, security employees, people also waiting in the room, was looking at this interracial couple, including my boyfriend. He started smirking and said good for him. In the car I asked him what you mean by that comment you made, and there on the way back home we argued the entire way about him gawking at that couple. He told me that he always thinks it's cool when a black guy is able to pull a white girl, and how that's not even fat. I don't know why he would say something like that. Stereotyping. I guess it bothers me too, because Hayes praising him for pulling a white girl. I mentioned, so you wouldn't praise him if he was with a black girl. He said not really, it's not the same thing. Hayes trying to insinuate it's a status thing. I got petty and told him he would never be able to pull one because that black man that got the white girl, he probably come from a good background and he comes from a two-parent household, because no way she would give a thug a chance. I also said they were married, cause I saw a ring on her finger, but my BF ain't gonna ever marry me. I'm just so *icking pissed off. Stories number 10. I'm very tempted to turn my client into the police. Aita 5F just started working as a child psychologist 2 months ago, in August, after finally finishing my master's. So far, as I start from the bottom, my job has been assessing and diagnosing problematic adolescents. I've had a dozen clients so far. Most have been fairly easy to work with, girls with eating disorders and boys with drug problems. Nothing too hard. My last client, 16M, who I will call X, however, left me somewhat disturbed. When I first met X, his mom dropped him off and left for the hour-long session. At first he seemed very calm and even a handsome young boy. He described to me why his parents urged him to go through with his session. Most of it was to do with antisocial behavior such as sibling bullying and arson, stealing, pathological lying, including the physical abuse he was subjected to by his parents growing up. However, he told me towards the end that he had killed 3 cats. Me personally, an animal lover, my view completely shifted. I was disgusted as he described the way he took these cats out, stating that he strangled the first 2 and crushed the third with his foot, even using a hammer to weaken the second cat before he killed it. He also explained how his mom, dad, and family have no idea of these acts. I kept a straight face throughout and tried to act professional despite knowing X is completely deranged. Now here is the issue. I have to see him in 3 days for another session, and my work right now is to make a formal diagnosis on the boy and select his treatment method if there will be a diagnosis, which I haven't decided. Although conduct disorder seems extremely likely, however, I feel disgusted by this psychopathic child and am not sure if I can do another session with him. I'm afraid I might act unprofessional due to how appalling I found his actions. He also stated he felt no remorse or guilt. Stories number 11. I 34 meters dated an employee of mine 19F and got far more than I bargained for. The year is 2019. I just left my executive chef position at a hotel and started a general manager position at a small town restaurant. At some point I hire her as a server. She's 19, vibrant, energetic, beautiful, and a bit flirty, especially with me. We maintain a casual, friendly relationship for some time. Then one day she invites me to go fishing with her on the weekend. I love fishing and I secretly adored her. I couldn't resist. We had a nice date out on the river fishing. We didn't catch much, but we drank some beer and had a good time. Later that evening I took her to a Mexican restaurant and we had margaritas and tacos. Afterwards I took her back to my work, which was directly across the street from where we're eating. I didn't want to go far because we had been drinking. We fucked right in my office. I had the CCTV footage for the longest time, but at some point she got a hold of my phone and deleted it, so that kinda sucked. We did whole whirlwind romance thing. I was instantly infatuated with her. Besides being extremely attractive to me, she was so fun and a joy to be around. I loved her energy and enthusiasm for everything, even the most mundane things. I went over to her house several times and met her family. It was kind of a shithole, but I felt welcome over there most of the time. In a short amount of time I wound up getting her on my phone plan and renting an apartment with her. I later got her a car. I got invested way too quickly. I still had my own place, but it was an hour or so away. I found it easier to crash right there with her, as it was close to where we both worked. Skipping ahead a few months, I caught her cheating on me in this apartment I was renting for her. Like WTF, lol. How I found out condoms in her bathroom garbage can that I knew weren't mine cause I wasn't using any. I confronted her. She denied. I dropped it for a while. A short time later she's trying to let an old friend stay with her for a while. I tried to play it cool, but I know I wound up getting the guy alone on the balcony. One night we drank and talked and it came up that as her name BTW. I made him aware of our relationship. He evidently had no idea and admitted that they were having intercourse when I wasn't around. I thanked him for his honesty. We traded numbers. He warned me off in saying that this was sorta just how she was. He was gone the next day, never to be seen again. I didn't listen to him. I confronted her once again and we had this whole knockdown drag out argument about it. She eventually copped to it and promised to stop. Never again. I love you, yada yada. Spoiler alert, it didn't, and it got worse. Paranoid now, I started secretly getting on her phone. It was way worse than I ever thought. She was on seeking arrangements, fucking old dudes for money. Basically I sabotaged her in many of these relationships, but she still just wouldn't stop. And she didn't break up with me either. It was weird. At this point I sorta lost it. I was already drinking a lot because she drank and that was something we did together. But at this point I started drinking more. I wound up getting a DUI and just spiraling out over all of this BS. I lost my job. I went to jail for 30 days, which seemed like forever. I thought when I got out I'd finally be free of her, but there she was, leaning against my car at 12:30 a.m. on the night I got out. We hadn't spoke the whole time I was in, so I was completely floored to see her there. We had this great big coming to Jesus chat and our relationship began its renaissance. But a few weeks later she was at it again. At this point I'm just like, look, if this is what you're going to do, let me be a part of it. She agreed and we started meeting random guys to fuck her. We often used Tinder but later graduated to seeking arrangements. I knew she was still using that on the side. Anyway, sometimes she got money out of these, and when she did she shared with me. I was starting to get into it. I was starting to like it, sharing what I had and having her afterwards. It was kinda hot, or maybe I just had Stockholm syndrome. Lol. Not long after this is when I found out she was smoking meth. This was about a year into our relationship. I don't think she was doing it the whole time she was seeing me. I think an old girlfriend of hers reintroduced her to it. She then introduced it to me. I didn't like it at first. It didn't seem to do much for me. I had been an opiate guy in the past, but this was way different. It eventually grew on me, and that's when the real craziness began. We were spending every night in hotels, literally just fucking all day and night. We would invite strangers over to fuck her and I would watch films, sometimes join in, but I'd always have her afterwards. It drove her wild when I went down on her right after she had just been fucked by a stranger. And I loved that after several months of that sort of thing, funds inevitably began to dry out. I didn't have a job anymore, remember? At some point she ran off with one of her dates. I was devastated, but I used this time to start putting myself back together. I got a new chef job at a hospital, and things were starting to get better for me. A few months later, here she comes back, me unable to resist Fell right back into her. We went back to fucking in hotels all night. It was at this point I really started to get into the whole filming aspect and took a lot of videos of her with other guys. It was like this fun game we just couldn't stop playing. Then one day she disappeared without saying a word. She moved away to another state. I found out later that she ran off with her meth dealer. I tracked her down and we had a few more fun nights, but he eventually found out, and at that point I was done. I was not going to keep driving 6 hours to fuck her in a hotel room while she was seeing and lying to someone else. At this point I felt the relationship had run its course. I was finally done. At this point I slowly started to phase the ice out of my life. I didn't have the same connections as she did, so I had a harder time getting a hold of it. Anyway, I had a little more fun with a couple of rebound girls. Then eventually I quit for good. Then I picked up all the pieces and started putting my life back together. I found out a year or so later that her and her new boyfriend got arrested for meth trafficking. I have their mugshots. That was satisfying. FNGL lol. The end. TL, doctor. I blew up my whole life to get cooked by some toxic teenage hottie who worked for me. As bad as it was, I still can't stop thinking about what an exciting time that was. I still watch the videos we made. Sometimes nothing else since has even seemed half as interesting. I fear I'm ruined. Stories number 12. I don't care that a 7-year-old is getting hate for abusing a cat. I recently learned that a 7-year-old got doxxed and a lot of death threats for posting a video of abusing what looks to me a kitten. I don't care that he got a lot of hate and death threats. I don't know how to feel about the doxing part. I hoped that scared the living shit out of him and that no one abuses that information like a predator or something like that. What I care is that I hope this whole situation puts the fear of God in him and that he cries and regrets everything he did. If a 7-year-old can record a video of abusing his cat and uploads it to YouTube with a well-written title, then in my opinion he deserves the backlash. I understand that a lot of people don't like how the internet is handling it by giving him death threats, but I don't care. He knows what he's doing and I hope him and his parents learn from this. I had my mom help me upload videos when I was 7, so either the 7-year-old did all of the work by himself or the parents helped him. I just don't care. Stories number 13. Son's bully exposed his penis to me. I want to report it, but I'm scared it will cause more problems. My son has been getting bullied for over 7 months now. I've reported it and done everything I can for it to stop, but they just ignore and say there isn't enough evidence, which is really frustrating. I was walking my dog in the park and I spotted the person who was bullying my son. He was with a group of friends. I decided to confront him, which wasn't the best idea. He was rude and just laughed at me. I really felt like hitting him, but I'm only a small woman and I hate violence anyway. After the abuse, he dropped his shorts and exposed his penis to me. I was totally embarrassed and really lost for words, and I just walked off. I've not told anyone, especially not my husband, because I know it could end up with him getting in serious trouble because I know he would be angry. I feel terrible now for confronting him. It may have made things worse. Stories number 14. Thinking about ending relationship with my boyfriend because of his Klinefelter syndrome. We've been together for over a year. I know from the beginning that something wasn't right, but he didn't tell me that he has Klinefelter syndrome. He looks good. We are both 25. He's tall and has nice face features. He really had this role going on in the beginning of the relationship. The I do so much stuff and have goals act. The first time we had intercourse was an indicator for me that something is not quite right. Really small testicles, female-like genital hair, very small organ, long arms and legs, gynecomastia, very low intercourse drive, etc. But since that's not the main point of dating, I looked past it. He was really kind and I had fun with him until we moved in together. I am an entrepreneur, studying at uni as well, and really high maintenance. I like to live in organized and clean environment, take care of myself, have clear goals, see the abuse, and basically understand that my future is in my hands and I can decide what direction I want to go in life. My BF is messy. I didn't know that, since we always hung out at my place and he really wanted to portray this image that he has his life together. Once we started to live together, he dropped out of school, doesn't know what job he would like to do, and doesn't really even know who he is. That's okay. We all need time to learn who we are. Now that we are 1 year into relationship, the issues are starting to bug me. He can't empathize with people, talks really slow, has no interests, and doesn't seem bothered by it. Basically all he does is play with PlayStation and constantly visits his parents if I am busy working, because there's always food ready and mom does my laundry. If I don't talk, clean, take care of him, pay bills, etc., nothing happens. Apartment is full of his mess clothes, dishes, trash, and we don't talk, not even mentioning the intercourse in the last 1 year we've had. Intercourse 3 times, and I am very intercourse active. Women normally have talked with the abuse so much about this, tried to politely ask questions about what he would like to do with his life, etc., but the answer is always, I don't know. So recently I found out from his mother that he has XXY chromosomes, read all about, and it all just makes perfect sense now. I brought it up with him a month ago, and he wasn't bothered. He said that he should have every 10 x testosterone shots, but he's too lazy to book an appointment, and that it doesn't bother him if talked about wanting to have family this whole relationship, and he told me that he can't have kids anyway. We had a long talk and booked an appointment with doctor. He didn't go, it was last week. If I bring it up, he just says, oh, book it later. And I just know that he won't if I don't do it for him. So the confession is that am I a horrible person for wanting to end this? I really want a man who could also mutually support me in life and want me intercourse and grow as a human being with me and start a family someday. I feel like I am holding my own life at post, taking care of him without getting anything back, and it's okay for some time. But after talk with his mom, it's been going on since he's been a child. This feels horrible to be thinking like this. Some days I just fantasies about a real relationship where we could do something else than me taking care of him and him playing games. I feel torn between relationships aren't perfect. He is a kind human and I should help him. Maybe someday he'll grow up and it will be worth it, and I need to take care of myself and pursue my dream life without him. Stories number 15. I have a small penis and I feel like a dehumanized piece of trash because of how society treats me. I have a small organ. I don't want to say how small, but it's always tormented me, not because it's impossible to find women who don't care, but because of the way others treat and perceive me. Because of something I was born with and have no ability to control, I will always be associated with the worst stereotypes and phrases and be nothing but a joke in popular culture. Hearing someone say small organ energy is deeply hurtful and people trying to gaslight me into thinking it's not really body shaming as some in this thread will do is even more hurtful. No matter much I try to love myself, the reminders are always there and everyone laughs and nobody bats an eye, nobody says anything, nobody cares. Having a small organ can be very lonely sometimes, and please don't tell me that it isn't an impediment to pleasing most women. I'm well aware, but it's still an invisible scarlet letter and the only form of body shaming that nobody ever objects to or realizes is wrong. I beg you from the bottom of my heart to please stop making life harder for us. Stop saying people like Trump and Hitler have micro lenses. Stop saying people have small organ energy. Stop treating it like it's the worst shame any man could ever have. Stop dehumanizing me. Edit. Thank you for proving my point with the disgusting, manipulative gaslighting throughout this thread. You can lie to yourself and say that body shaming isn't body shaming all you want, but I know the truth and so do a few others. Why you're all full of shit. Edit. To I am happy to see people standing up for us and arguing with those who gaslit me, hoping to sustain this momentum I have created. Against albodyshing, let's make a difference. Stories number 16. Two Redditors saved my life back in 2019. I had gotten out of prison, landed a job, and moved out of a halfway house into my own studio. I became a functional member of society, so of course my family started asking me for money. I ended up losing my job, and due to my felony I was hesitant to apply for jobs where I was qualified and would make good money. I thought I had an extra week of unemployment benefits, so I used what I had to help my family, but food, even though I wasn't living with them and none of them worked, the next unemployment check would cover my groceries and rent. Well, there was no next unemployment check. I had ran out of benefits and was short on rent. I had asked Reddit if I could return groceries a week after buying them, and Redditors were confused why I was asking such a weird question. I said I was short on rent money after thinking that I had another week of benefits. To Redditors sent me $75 total, which was enough to cover my rent. I was not looking for money. I guess they pitied me. A few days later, I unexpectedly was offered a job making $35 an hour. My last job paid me $1,750 an hour. I managed to pass a background by faking some stuff. The pandemic hit and my position became remote. I ended up moving out of my shitty studio with no kitchen sink and a view of the parking lot into a spacious apartment by the ocean with fireplace An oversized tub. I've been at my job and my apartment ever since. I cannot emphasize how that $75 saved me. I would have killed myself before living on the streets, and this was before COVID. I know I'm an outlier, and most people would have blown it on other things, but I wish I could let those three people know. It was a white girl and an Asian guy. They helped me more than my own family. Stories number 17. My boyfriend just admitted he's a psychopath to me and that he picked me. I don't know where else to say this or put this, so I'll leave it here. I've been with him for about 6 months and known him for about 3 months before that. He's gorgeous and witty, intelligent, charismatic. Genuinely not at all what I stereotyped a psychopath to be. I truly would have never known it. Sure, sometimes he can be a little cold, a little dry, and there have been times in our relationship where I'm expressing something he's done to express me that I'm catching the drift. He genuinely does not give a fuck, even if he amends it. My biggest clue, however, was watching him adapt insanely good. Depending on those around him, we've always been in the same friend group, so we've always seen him act a certain way, behave a certain way, and yes, being his girlfriend, I get a different side to him. But barely 2 nights ago, I went to a work event for his work with him and I watched in fucking awe as he literally acted like an entirely different person. Everyone loves him because he was acting exactly how they wanted him to, needed him to. The jokes they told that I could have sworn he would think were heinous, he laughed at and made similar jokes. Topics of discussion he does not care for, they brought up, and he talked with them, feigning amazing interest. It was like he had morphed into this amazing person for them, one nothing like the person I was used to. I asked him about it on the drive back to mine. He tried gaslighting me. He acted normal. I didn't buy it. I didn't invite him to mine like I always did, and I guess that's when he figured I was mad. He didn't contact me for 2 days. My boyfriend had upset me and he didn't care to contact me. Okay, then he ended up showing up and insisting to talk to me. And he told me he was a psychopath. I laughed in his face and told him to get out. He brought his medical information with him, stubborn prick, to prove it, all the tests, the diagnoses, all of it. I was floored. He told me that people like him are extremely good at adapting to social situations that serve them to fit into. Of course, being friendly and liked at work served him. It's why he's been promoted so fast. It's never a bad thing to have too many friends, so he masks and adapts when meeting new people and screens them to decide if he really even wants or cares to have them for a friend. I asked him why me. Why had he made me his long-term girlfriend? He simply said, "I'm at a point in my life I think I should have a girlfriend, probably one I'll marry. I knew you for 3 months, and I liked you enough, so I picked you." Picked me? He told me it was when him and I were walking back to mine and I had made a joke he found genuinely funny. And he noticed he found me genuinely pretty and he decided then and there, yeah, okay, I'll pick her, and boom, a month later we were together. I'm so confused. Does this mean he likes me? Does he love me? Is this as close to love as psychopaths get? I asked him if he genuinely loved me and he said I would marry you. Doesn't that answer it? No, I said I needed time and he just left. I realized I think he literally doesn't give a fuck, so that's why, but he is giving me time. I love him. I don't know if I could live with this. I'm just confused and I don't want to tell anyone just yet. I feel embarrassed that I never figured it out. Anyways, leaving it here. Stories number 18. My husband secretly hates me. My husband hates me and he thinks I don't know. It started with small changes. Stopped taking photos with me, stopped surprising me with small drinks here and there, stopped doing all those small gestures that made me feel loved and appreciated. Soon it felt like pulling teeth just to get a kiss or proper affection. Whenever I said anything, it was brushed off like it was all just him messing around. I tried to ignore it despite the rising feeling that things weren't the same, and eventually I couldn't take it anymore. I went through his phone. I found his diary, and as much as I hate myself for this, I read it. I read every single thing. Every small joke I made, every mistake I made was being used against me. I was called some terrible names. He outright said he hates me and that the relationship couldn't be fixed. I wanted reassurance and cuddles. It was me being pushy and forcing affection on him. I had a disagreement with him. It was me making him out to be the bad guy. I made a joke about something he did. It was taken seriously. Now I just sit here, running everything he wrote through my head every day, while I pretend I don't know anything. Every single thing he does or says, I have that nagging question: is he being genuine? Was that diary just venting out frustration? Or is it all true, and is everything he does fake? The saddest part is that I still love him and I'll never have the courage to confront him or leave him a weak, pathetic person, and I'll continue to pretend everything is okay. while taking note of every small thing he says, or does and cry about it at night until the day he finally grows tired of it and leaves me. Sorry for the long post, I just needed a space to vent. Edit. I was not expecting this to blow up the way it did. Thank you all for either your support or criticism, even if it was harsh. I agree I should not have looked through his phone, and I deserve to be called out on that. Moving forward, I will be looking into therapy to better my mental health and to hopefully allow me to communicate better. Moving forward, I will not disagree with those of you who said there are two sides to every story. I know that I definitely made my own mistakes, and they could have contributed to the current resentment, especially with the breakdown of communication on both sides. And in case anyone jumps to this conclusion, no, I did not cheat on him. I am sorry for not being more specific in this post. I did not want this traced back to me, as he also has a Reddit account, and this was definitely a heat of the moment thing. Thank you all for reading this vent and allowing me to see some different ways I can improve myself and hopefully this marriage, if it's not already too late. Stories number 19. My boyfriend told me he's a psychopath and that he picked me. First, thanks so much for all of the advice. I have read every single comment, and while the general advice has been run for my life, I decided it was worth one more conversation about it with my boyfriend. I invited him over and asked some questions. I'm going to type out how it went. Me: why did you decide to tell me you're a psychopath? BF: because you were going to leave me if you didn't get a good explanation for my behavior, and I know when you leave you stay gone. Me: so did you tell me it to mock honesty and vulnerability? BF: no. I was going to cut my losses, which is why you didn't hear from me, but I do genuinely like you. I would miss things from my life if you left. You're one of the few people whose company I actively seek out and enjoy, and the intercourse is great, which I think should be noted, so I decided to be honest with you. Me: do you love BF? I can say I do if that's what you'd like to hear, but I'm making an effort not to tell you what you want to hear. Me: what do you think I want to hear? BF: that I love you, that you're the only person in the world I love and care about, and that it never hurt you. And you're the only person who gets to see the real me. Me: okay, and what's the truth? BF: that I'd marry you because I don't see myself being happier in another relationship, that I would miss you if you left my life, so I'm not in the business of going out of my way to drive you out, and that I do try my best to act like myself around you and not how you want me to act, and you haven't left me, so that's a good sign. No. Me: why do you say you picked me? BF: why is this beginning to sound like an interrogation? Me: I'm getting my facts sorted, so it kinda is. BF: okay, that's fair. I said it because it's what I did. I was at a point in my life and career where I figured I should have a long-term girlfriend, and I wanted that person to be you. Me: because you like it. BF: because I think that you're pretty, and I do genuinely think you're funny. And your beliefs align with mine, and I know you very well from when we were friends. I knew the type of person you were, and I thought would be a good match, and I was right. Me: so you picked me because I ticked off a checklist, not because you had like a crush on me. BF: yeah, at first it was tactical, but I wouldn't have stayed with you if all I saw you as was a walking tick list, or else it'd get bored. I'm staying with you, and I plan to because I like you. Me: will you ever love me? BF: I'll do for you what a boyfriend who loves you does. Me: because it's in your best interest to keep me happy. BF: that's what all boyfriends do. They do things to keep their girlfriends happy because it serves them to have a happy relationship. And have done a good job because we have a happy relationship. Me: so you mind you do that? BF: no, because you're happy, which means I am, because when you're pissed off it impacts my life in ways I don't want it to. Me: and if I died, would you be sad? BF: that was a dumb thing to say. Me: would you? BF: I'd miss you, but I wouldn't be sad in the way you'd like me to be. Me: do you ever care when I'm sad? BF: yes and no, it doesn't affect me all that much if you're sad unless I know it's going to impact me. But I don't like to see you cry, but whether I've made you cry or someone else has doesn't matter to me, I just don't like to see it. Me: thanks, who else knows? BF: my parents, and that's it. Me: I want time to think this over now. BF: I'm not going to wait forever. Me: okay, and that was how it went. I have an excellent memory, so this is pretty much word for word. Look, based off this conversation, I think I'd like to stay with him. But those reading this who may have spotted red flags, please do tell me. Thank you. Stories number 20. My friend's mom touched my organ and I have mixed feelings about it. The first time I was 7 and had my first sleepover at my friend Sean's house. I thought it was odd that his mom was in his bathroom running a bath. She called us in and said to put our clothes in the hamper and she'd come back with pajamas. I thought that was strange. I even thought it was more strange that Sean's organ looked way different than mine. He was circumcised. His mom later came in and washed out hair, which felt good. Then she told us to stand up and she washed Sean's back and front side. Then she asked me to turn around and she did the same to me. I didn't think she'd wash my organ like she washed Sean's, but she looked at my organ and asked me to pull it back. I had no idea what she meant. She said, "You have to pull it back." She tried retracting me, but I wasn't able to, so she said, "Never mind." I'm now 17. I don't think I was molested. It felt good though. I started to hang out with Sean. We stopped in middle school. I almost saw his mom and just think that this is the woman who touched and washed my organ. Stories number 21. I think my mom's boyfriend is intercourse attracted to me. I 22F have been living with my mom and her boyfriend, who are both in their late 50s. Since I was 16. Couple months ago I had a big fight with both of them. Can't even remember what it was about. And my mom asked me to talk to her boyfriend to make up and live in peace in the household. I decided to do it even though he creeps me out a bit and makes me feel uncomfortable in general. Just for her, during this conversation, he started saying things like, "Yeah, I know why we fight. I see the way we look at each other," in a very ambiguous tone. I didn't know what to say. I couldn't make myself believe that he was saying that, so I tried to shake it off, avoid him as much as possible, and wait for this extremely awkward feeling to go away. Yesterday we had a fight cause some of my stuff was taken without asking. Mind, I have a job, don't ask for money, pay part of the bills, etc. Today he came to talk to me and said, "You get so angry when I shift my attention from your lady parts to something else. You act different when your mom is around." I think agreed before about that. "If you want my attention, just ask me. Do you get what I'm talking about?" I answered, saying I was locked up in my room just because I want to relax on my day off, and I didn't know what he was talking about. I don't have the guts to face this topic with him. Makes me extremely uncomfortable, but I don't know how to make it clear that I don't want and never will have any intercourse, attraction, or interaction with him. Stories number 22. My cousin committed suicide and I had to pretend to care. My cousin was a massive cunt the whole time he was alive. Growing up he did stuff like stick a pair of scissors up my nose and cut my septum. When playing hide and seek one night, I was running across an area where he kicked a wooden box in front of me that sent me flying, would poke holes in my bike tires, constantly tried to get me in trouble, bully and put me down as much as possible, etc. Just constantly nasty. He tried running away from home, so he was sent to live with my grandma. He took pictures of my uncle's gun collection without permission and threatened people with them. Then one day he hung himself after a fight with his girlfriend. Everyone was all sad and shit. I really didn't care. They found a stolen gun in his room after the funeral, and I really do think he was planning to shoot someone or shoot up his school. The thing is, his own father abandoned him, and his stepfather was also a cunt. And he had a nasty mother, my aunt. I would have felt sorry for him if he wasn't such a prick. Prior, the family used to just bully his older sister and he would join in until she left. Then the parents turned on him. He couldn't handle it. After he died, I had to pretend to remember him positively, yet I really couldn't. Even now I have zero good memories about him. Though I do remember the day he killed himself. I had an episode where I suddenly couldn't breathe. Then I felt overwhelmingly like I should contact him, despite never having this urge before in my life. Several hours later, my uncle rang up and told my mother what happened. My mother, being a subnormal sociopath, screamed at me, "Your cousin killed himself," then hit me because I didn't cry, so that motherfucker managed to get me abused from beyond the grave. Even on the day of the funeral, my mother hit me for smiling, then hit me for not smiling. I couldn't win. Stories number 23. I was intercourse assaulted relentlessly for a year as a dude. A few years back I was living in another state, and I ended up dating this girl Sarah for about a year and a half. She was your standard pretty valley girl, dancer like ballet, not stripper, who was really athletic. And everything was pretty okay for a while. There was an incident where she cheated on me early into our relationship, but I thought I could work past it. Fast forward to about 6 months into dating and we were living together. She got extremely depressed and decided it was entirely my fault. It started with some cold shoulders some yelling or crying, and I did what I thought she wanted, which was to be there for her and listen and change some of what I was doing. Eventually it ramped up to her punching me in the testicles if I didn't do exactly what she said. When she said it, at one point I was playing some Apex Legends while she was napping. She woke up and threw a ceramic plate at the side of my head and gashed it open. I never called the cops, because she always talked about how she would pin it on me and my life would be ruined. Finally it evolved into an intercourse nature. If I didn't have intercourse with her nightly, she would cut herself in front of me or hold a knife to her throat. I had to go with it. She had attempted suicide several times at that point, and I was scared it would somehow, some way come back on me. It messed me up really, really bad. Even to this day with her, she would always demand I finish inside of her. But she wasn't on, because so as a guy I always had to fake orgasm, which in hindsight, how did she not notice? It ended about a year after the abuse started, because luckily she moved in with her sister in a fight. So I just put her stuff on the porch with a note and moved states away. As a man, it took me a really long time to admit to myself that it was assault. It also does and helped that right when I was on the verge of getting somewhat back to a new normal, I was drugged and intercourse assaulted again by a woman I met on a dating app. Luckily now I am married to a very understanding and kind woman who works with me through the trauma so we can be as happy as possible together. Thank you guys for reading this. Feels good to type it out. Stories number 24.
My wife doesn't know I'm hiding a penguin in our basement. Hello, I am a married man with a wife, and fortunately life got boring through the boredom. I desperately looked for ways to make it fun. I gained an interest on penguins. I decided to sneak a penguin into the basement. We went to South Africa last week. I got the penguin home and took some spare computer parts had lying around and put it together. I gave the penguin a USB drive with Arch Linux on it, so maybe it'll use the computer. I then went to the store to get some money to buy krill and a freezer for the penguin to sleep in. When I got it, I gave the penguin the krill and set up the freezer. I decided to get the industrial swamp cooler I had lying around and filled the floor with water and cooled it. It was like a mini South Africa for the penguin to enjoy. It's been a few days and my wife still hasn't noticed. I know I can't keep it up forever, so I'm going to try to keep it up as long as I can. Stories number 25. Christmas for men pisses me off. That comes off as like I don't want men to have joy, but it's the complete opposite. A few years ago I was shopping for my brother-in-law and I had no idea what to get him, so I just went to Walmart for something quick and easy. I noticed though one thing: everything in the grab gift section was something my bill already had. Drinking games, silly knickknacks, goofy ties. This guy has been in my family almost 10 years. That is an amazing feat. To be honest, he has never wavered in any sort of bullshit that has happened. And it genuinely shot me through the heart to see that these throwaway gifts were probably the most he got from anyone other than my sister, so that year I decided that I had to be completely mindful about his gifts from now on. But I wonder though, how many men actually get this kind of treatment? Like just a whatever kind of gift just to get you a gift instead of something that makes you feel like a kid that morning. What would be something amazing you'd never think anyone would know you enough to get? Stop being so nonchalant on the questions. What do you want for enter special day here, cause men deserve the special tingles too. Stories number 26. I accidentally got in the shower with my mother-in-law. Dear Reddit, me and my wife have been living together for almost 4 years now. I travel a lot for work, and when I get home after a week of traveling, me and my wife can't keep our hand of each other. When I landed at the airport and got off the plane, I let my wife know I'm on my way, and in her naughty voice she replied with, "I'll be waiting for you." Now for the next part, some context need to be given. My wife will sometimes pretend to not hear me so I can grab her and pick her up. It's a game we play, and now that I typed it, I hear how dangerous it actually is. Both my wife and mother-in-law always blast music while they are in the shower, and usually my wife lets me know when we have guests. But my mother-in-law had a problem with her water pipes, and because as I got home, I heard the loud music coming from the bathroom, I immediately got aroused and made my way to the bathroom. And racing like a horny teen, leaving my clothes all over the place, I slowly opened up the shower door, and as I did it, my mother-in-law turned around. I immediately apologized and ran out, but naked, as she continued to scream at me. My wife heard the screaming and came out of her room to watch. She puts one and one together and broke down laughing. I don't know what to do. My mother-in-law left without saying anything to me, and I can't even sleep. Stories number 27. I understand drug addiction now. I'm someone who is very nervous about taking medication and against unnecessary drug use, but I had surgery recently and was prescribed oxycodone. Was in unbearable pain the first week and the drugs had me sleeping for most of the day. Was very helpful. I stopped taking it after a few days once my pain went away. Had a little bit of pain last week before bed and decided to take it again. But since my pain wasn't so bad, I kept scrolling on my phone and suddenly realized how nice I felt once it kicked in, so I just laid in bed and felt it until I eventually fell asleep. An hour or so later, then the next day before going to bed, I decided to take it again. And same thing happened. I felt good and worn and eventually fell asleep. The next day I decided to double it, felt even better, and had been taking double every night. Since then it's my favorite part of my day. Tonight I almost took a third pill. I want to feel even better. But in trying to keep it at double, I had the realization that people are addicted to drugs because other drugs feel much better than this. I wouldn't do anything else. I'm scared of medicine and overdosing. But this feels great. I don't have any refills left after this anyway. Good night. Stories number 28. I regret my child. That's the post. I've come to regret my child. I used to think that I only regretted who their father was, but I've slowly begun to realize I have contempt for them as well. I know this is harmful to them, and I do my best to make sure I keep my feelings in check and encourage them to be a good person, but it's harder some days to hide. I constantly have thoughts of I wish I had aborted them, or I raised them out of obligations, not love. I've never said this to them. I've never written it down or told anyone about my feelings, and it's gotten to a point that I can't hold these thoughts and feelings at bay anymore. Kiddo, I'm so sorry. You never deserved a parent who is like this. Maybe it'll get better. But right now I feel so alone with this edit. Fixed a typo. Additional info. I am in my late 30s and my kid is a teenager. These feelings began to arise within the last 2-3 years, however, have become more persistent the last 6 year. Stories number 29. I'm losing the ability to walk and I'm hiding it from almost everyone in my life, to be honest. I'm terrified. I'm 26. And I'm barely able to walk anymore. I haven't gone more than a couple days without using a cane in nearly a year. So most people that see me in day-to-day life just assume things are how they've always been. But in the past month or so I've suddenly been getting a lot worse and I've actually fallen down multiple times. My family all live out of state and haven't seen me since the cane became a constant, so I've mentioned here or there that yeah, I've been using my cane more, but I haven't told them about the falling or anything. There's nothing they can do. There's nothing anyone can do. I work 55 hours a week, can only got insurance about 2 days ago, but I'm not allowed to take time off work in my first 90 days, so I can't see a doctor until November at least. Even if I can see a doctor, I doubt I'd be able to afford any sort of extensive treatment. I've looked into getting a wheelchair, but even if that wasn't expensive, I live in a townhouse that doesn't have room for one. Even if it was accessible, I've considered moving. But I just signed this lease 2 months ago, so there's another 11 to go, and realistically, finding a rental that's accessible enough is going to be hell. I wish more than anything that I could buy a house and get it renovated before things get worse, but that's never going to be an option. My partner knows things are getting bad, and he's about the only one who knows how bad it is, but I haven't told him how much it's affecting me either. Like, he knows I need help getting upstairs and can't get changed by myself by the time I get home from work, but he doesn't know how absolutely defeated I feel or just how depressed this is making me. I worked really hard to make something of my life just to see it being ripped out of my hands. At 26, I pushed myself to become better than my parents were, to get out of every shit situation life ever threw at me. I can't get out of my legs not working anymore. I just don't know what to do. I get off work in 30 minutes and have to pretend I'm not on the brink of collapse as I walk out to my car. Have to feel my knees shift every time I step on the gas or brake as I drive home. Have to call my partner to come help me out of the car and have to be changed like an infant before I can go to bed. I feel like the biggest burden on the planet. He's 24 and shouldn't have to waste his life dealing with this. I'm supposed to be in the best shape of my life. I don't know if I should tell people. I don't want to be a burden on anyone else. I feel so guilty every single moment that I'm relying on people for help, but I also feel guilty that I'm not telling anyone because I don't want them to titty me. I keep thinking about how my grandfather lost the use of his legs right before we Found out that he had stage 4 cancer. I doubt that's what is happening with me. I've had no other symptoms. Well, he had several that he later admitted to hiding, but I have honestly been debating what I would do in regards to treatment. If that is the case, I can't let myself become more of a burden.